The fight for freedom has ended in defeat for 24 Cubans who made it to a lighthouse off the Florida Keys. They've spent more than 5 weeks waiting to hear if they can stay in the United States, and today a judge ruled they cannot. CBS 4's Gary Nelson is live in downtown Miami with more on the judge's decision. Gary?
It was a battle fought out in federal court for nearly 6 weeks, and today a judge ruled that arguing that reaching a tower, a light tower miles offshore is, well, just a legal bridge too far to cross. 24 Cuban migrants made their way to this U.S. lighthouse some 7 miles off the Keys and have bobbed around in a Coast Guard cutter since, while immigrant lawyers and the government battled in court over whether they are wet foot and should be returned to Cuba or dry foot and brought to the U.S. Nearly 6 weeks later, Judge Darvin Gales ruled the issue came down to this: the court must decide whether the Coast Guard properly determined that the immigrant situation was wet foot under U.S. policy. Lawyers for the migrants argued the lighthouse was American property in U.S. territory, a dwelling, and the refugees had reached America, even though the tower was in 4 feet of water. The judge disagreed, saying the court cannot find that the Coast Guard acted unreasonably in concluding that the lighthouse did not qualify as a dry foot situation. The migrants' advocates were crestfallen.
This is a very sad moment for all of us, that these things will not stop happening, and Exodus will not stop until the criminal dictatorship of the Castro family stops destroying the Cuban nation.
So what now for this group? The Coast Guard, citing the judge's ruling, said the Cuban migrants who sought refuge on the lighthouse are feet wet and will be processed for repatriation to Cuba. And the Coast Guard warned others not to attempt a dangerous voyage across the straits that can end in disappointment or possible death. Well, the reality is, though, we're seeing a surge in these journeys because on the island of Cuba, with growing détente between the U.S. and that nation, there is fear that the Cuban Adjustment Act favored treatment for Cuban migrants may change, and folks are trying to get out in front of that in a sometimes very dangerous way. For now, we're live in Miami. Gary Nelson, CBS 4 News.